Okay, hello. Thank you so much for coming. I know that I'm competing with an incredibly beautiful day out there. Je peux parler en français. C'est pas terrible, mais c'est preuve que même si on ne maîtrise pas une langue, si on s'applique quand même, on peut faire le métier de journalisme partout. Parce que quand on ne maîtrise pas la langue, on peut poser des questions même plus bêtes. Les gens parlent un peu plus lentement et parfois ça nous aide à avoir des scoops. But I will continue in English and also present my colleague Ed, who is in Sydney, where it is actually very late and the sun has set. But he has a shot from our TV studio in Sydney across Western Europe and Dubai and across Asia. So after I talk, he's going to help me answer any questions you all have throughout the session, but he will then also present more formally our intern program, how to apply, yeah, and how to have fun doing business journalism at Bloomberg. So to start, just a little bit about myself. I've been based at Paris since I started a very long time ago as a cub reporter, so a beginning reporter. It was my first full-time job. I was a creative literature major in French and German. So after my first week on the job, when I came home and dollar, he rolled his eyes and was like, what happened to the comparative literature major that I fell in love with? But I was fascinated by it and learning about markets, learning about how markets impact people, how they impact companies. And so while financial journalism, business journalism can seem like this esoteric kind of scary thing out there, it's actually something that any journalist does. I don't know, can you all think of like a really exciting big sports story in the past couple of years? Any kind of sports story that involved money? Just anything. Anyone? Exactly. Investments, the owners buy investments that are investing in clubs, but might have some other dodgy dealings. Here in France, what's been the big sort of international politics and money story of football here in France? Exactly. Sarko and what country? Qatar. Right? And so while, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's not totally exciting to be in the Stade de France following the final of the European Championships or the World Cup, especially when we win. But you can break incredible stories by following the money. In retail, consumer goods, luxury goods, do you all know what's the biggest company in luxury goods today? LVMH. And who owns it? Bernard Arnault. And what is his title? Like, what's he known for in the world now? What? Arts. An incredible art collector. On any given day, he may or may not be the richest man in the world. Who's the other richest man in the world that he competes with? Exactly. So, once again, it's incredible to follow fashion. I mean, not looking at me, you know, I'm not totally into it, but to be able to be at the catwalk, to be able to talk about the top models, but you can also break an incredible amount of news following the money, the people behind it, the contracts with Michael Jordan. Did anyone watch that movie, Air? On Netflix? It's an incredible business story, right? And the way that Michael Jordan and his mom transformed the industry to... I'll do one more example. Do any of you own one of these? Do you know where it's designed? Designed. California. What impact does it have in California? Housing. Why housing? It's too expensive because the people who are making these are making a lot, or who are designing them are making a lot of money, right? And so there's a huge economic impact in California, in San Diego. And we heard a lot through COVID of, all of the tech kids, I shouldn't ageist, but, becoming digital nomads, because it was far better to have your incredible Apple salary and, like my brother-in-law's son, to be living out of a van on the coast of California and then sail around the world while you're also making money. But so there's tons of business stories in California about technology. Where is this made? What, are the workers there happy? What are the big stories about the factories in China? They're not paid very well. Are they free to do whatever they want to on any given day? Exactly. And so do you all know the name of the company that makes most of these phones? Chinese company or Hong Kong? Ed's gonna correct me if I'm wrong. Foxconn, is that a name of it? And what happened at the Foxconn factories when work conditions got really bad? People jumped out the windows. And there was a rash of suicides. And it was an incredible, horrible personal stories about these people's lives. But then it raised huge questions, both ethical, about like, wait, am I part of this if I have this in my hand? And business, right? Wait, oh my gosh, wait, if Apple actually starts paying more to their subcontractors to pay those workers more, I'm not gonna be able to afford one of these anymore. Wait, and so our reporters who cover Apple, who every quarter write the earnings stories about how much Apple has made and how much they've sold, and who are also watching the keynote speech, they were also working with our reporters in China, talking to the workers in those factories and telling incredibly human, very sad stories about that. I also worked with a colleague, I don't know if you all know what the base metal, what's the item, the metal that is most used in an iPhone? What is it? Silicium. Ah, that's a very good guess. No, but it's a very good guess. Tin. Oh, what were you gonna say? Cobalt, that's a big deal too, right? But it's actually tin, laiton, because it's in the back of it. Actually, I don't know. I worked with a colleague on this story about 10 years ago, so maybe now the inside of the phone has changed a bit. But it's the thing that welds everything together. And so I have a colleague who was like, wait, but where does tin come from? And he traced it back, and about half of it comes from China, and the other half comes from a little island in Indonesia. Maybe a little bit, but a lot of it comes from a little island in Indonesia. And it's a very poor island, beautiful, very poor. You can just walk around and pick tin up practically out of the ground. And that's what people do. And so they dig and dig and dig and sell tin to the local tin producer. And then they create sinkholes and people die in them. And so I had a colleague, he's moved on from Bloomberg, who was incredible at supply chains. So figuring out, he sat down basically and looked at every component in the iPhone and said, where can I get the best story about the impact of the fact that we're all buying these things on people around the world that includes a market that Bloomberg readers would care about. And he came up with tin, and he went to this island. And it's one of those moments in journalism where you say, awesome story, but you also realize, like, you're so privileged to be there to tell it because it's actually a heartbreaking story. And you want to get the word out so that hopefully you can change them. So business journalism is actually journalism. And at Bloomberg, and I know Ed will say this, we can't teach you curiosity. We can't teach you to have an insatiable hunger to understand the story, to find the people who can tell you what happened, why it happened, to want to get every single data set that you possibly can and throw it into a spreadsheet and, well, I'm sure know how to code, I don't, but figure out how to slice and dice it to find a surprise that people are gonna care about, that they're gonna wanna read about. So I think that's mainly what I wanted to tell you, is that you can learn the finance side, and by being curious about the finance side, it will make you a better journalist no matter where you wind up, because money connects everything. And so if you have a basic understanding of how money works, knowing that no matter what industry you're following, you want to know the bankers that bankroll them, you want to know the financiers behind them, you want to know the lawyers who are going to be striking the deals behind closed doors. Those are the people that are going to help you break the news. And hopefully some of you will do it at Bloomberg, and you'll be breaking financial news. But even at Bloomberg, a lot of the big stories that we break aren't purely just financial. Do you have any questions? Yes? How do you do both at once? Well, one, and actually I should make sure that I have time to show the slides. Oh, good, we've got time. I mean, as a journalist at Bloomberg, you really have to be very like proactive and upstarting if you're on a beat where you do have the numbers coming in and the day-to-day stuff that you're having to be doing, to find time to then be digging deeper and doing investigations. And I have slides of previous Sciences Po students who are now my colleagues, and my colleagues. And in almost every one of their examples, they are doing incredibly enterprising work on their beat. They're now actually, so if you are breaking news, now, you know, the CEO might not, but oftentimes we say, you know, let's get this first piece out so that people start coming to us and that more sources will open up, and they'll see that we were fair, that we gave people a right to reply from every single side of the story. You know, and I've worked on pieces where, you know, we finally got a reaction from the company, and it's like, whew, you know, they send you like a 5-screen email, and then you have to sit down and be like, okay, how can we be fair and really give them their say so they can't complain afterwards, but not ruin our beautiful story? So sometimes it can be hard work. But we also have a newsroom, a global newsroom council that we work with closely to ensure that before we publish, we really have thought through anything that could be problematic, so that we're rock solid when we actually go live. Other questions? Yes? In that we have tons of resources. So we are sort of organized by bureaus, but also by regional teams. So people are spread across beats. So if I cover luxury, I'll be on a daily conference call with all of the people that you all are learning, and that was going to be one of my messages, is like, embrace the technology. So we do have a TV people. One of the Sciences Po people is is a TV producer and reporter here in Paris. We have podcasts. We have magazines. We have a Twitter, an X 24-hour news channel that's now morphed into a documentary producing studio that's, I don't know, maybe we'll win an Oscar next year. So it's constantly evolving, and a real challenge, but a real opportunity is trying to work across those platforms. And so know that even if you're on this one beat, that when you get a good story that you want to, make sure that it's being promoted across. Ed, do you want to talk about how we compare to normal newsrooms?
Well, it's been so long since I've worked in a normal newsroom. I think the biggest difference is the degree of specialization that we have in our newsrooms. We're covering really quite complex topics across business and finance and markets and companies and economies and government, that we really need our reporters to specialize. So as Melissa was saying, we have that team-based structure that allows us to really dig in and build up that knowledge. And so we have a dual reporting structure. We report and we work through our teams, but we're also within a bureau, the Paris bureau, and we're trying to tell the holistic story about what's happening in France as well. So that would be the main difference, I think, our team-based structure.
Okay, and maybe with that, I still want more questions. So if you have questions, keep thinking of them, and we'll have time for them. Maybe it will turn on the just the slides. Is Ed, are you running them? Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. Do you want to just go forward? Oh, right. You're over her name, but that's okay. They flip different sides, and her Twitter handle is the most important thing. But so didn't study finance. Do you need to have studied journalism? In France, probably. In an American newsroom, not so much. So once again, I'm going to show you incredible examples of all of my Sciences Po alum colleagues. One flip French example that I just wanted to share with you is, I don't know if you all read the New York Times. Anyone? Randomly, I happen to do Nordic walking with his mom. And he apparently wanted to do journalism at Sciences Po, but when he didn't get in, he went to HEC, and then he got an internship at the New York Times, and he's doing incredible work there. So it's once again, I don't know which track it was, and I'm sure, you guys all deserve to be here, and there's 50,000 more people that would have deserved to be here as well. But it's just to show you, like, in France and in different European countries, it is a bit more structured, where it's awesome to be able to have this degree. But it is incredible to see, like, I think what I'm trying to say is that every experience that you have can really count, and you can really bring it. If you're curious, if you're wanting to know how it works, you can bring it into a journalism career. So if you want to start at the beginning, I'll just say who. So Olivia, she graduated from the double major. And she is incredible because she started on all of these beats as an intern, so she did economy, soft commodities, anyone? But in her rotations and when she got hired onto Bloomberg, she had a real passion for telling stories about how policy, how different financial decisions and impact people who are socioeconomically disfavored, and racial inequality issues in London and in the UK. She has done incredible work on that. She was, I think, maybe our first journalist in London to win the British Journalism Award within like her second year at Bloomberg. So anyway, she's a star. Okay, next slide. This is Arena. She is Romanian. She was at Sciences Po during the exciting moment of our lives called COVID. Where were you all 20? Macron had that great quote. But anyway, so while she was doing her Sciences Po, she managed to get a job working for a Romanian news outlet, working online from home. And then she was hired on. And she now, so she did the internship, the rotating ship, and she's now working with our UK website, which we launched a couple years ago. And I love her beat because it's the future of work. So she's like looking at work from home, not work from home. She's having to write about how awful it is for employers to force us all to go back to work, right as we're all having to go back to work. And the economy, and the big four accounting firms. Can anyone name the big four accounting firms? Yes. Yes? Can you Google them quickly, Ed? What's the fourth one? I can't remember. That's awesome. So why are accounting firms important? That I don't know, but probably. And are they always helping the companies create accounts that are completely honest and forthright? No, not necessarily. So one of my early stories I worked on with a reporter was Granton Thorne. Anyway, I think they've since gone out of business because they were so bad at getting it right. I mean, they were actually getting the numbers wrong on purpose, or like at the intersection of money and all sorts of decisions, but they're not, you know, the people who work there in general don't want to talk to you. So you have to have a real knack for knowing how to show real interest in what they do and asking lots of questions and be willing to interview someone 4 or 5 times before you actually start asking the questions you want answers to, so that hopefully they won't realize that they're not supposed to be answering that question. And it's interesting because she, on that beat, is competing with a reporter who was also an intern at Bloomberg and then moved on. All right, next person. All right, Joe, I love this photo. This was last week at the UK Labour Conference. Back, I think he was in this program, in the English speaking line as quickly as possible because they're gonna be taking investment decisions, and if we're late, they are not gonna be happy. So she has this incredible pressure-filled job for a couple of blocks of hours during the day. But in between those, she uses her time to write about France and to write about interesting stories about France, sometimes more business, sometimes less business, but it's having worked at the Huffington Post and getting an understanding of exactly what readers want to read. Like, her subjects always are like, oh wow, like I want to read that too. Even if it's something I was talking about at the dinner table several nights in a row the week before, but to me I didn't think, oh, that'd be a great story. So anyway, all right, next person. I didn't, it's in the anyway, I was working in Google Drive and it covers up her. But okay, so this is Anya in the middle. And the reason why I had to take this photo was because she was so busy. She's our political reporter. Obviously, there's war going on. Macron's been traveling all over the place. She's the Élysée correspondent. And she was ghosting me when I kept asking her for a photo and for her CV. So today, this morning, before I came over here, which is why I didn't get this to you sooner, was I went over and just asked her, could I just take, guys, can I take Anya's photo for a second? So anyway, so she's sitting with Sammy, who moved to Paris from Brazil, who is also a political reporter, and on the other side is Will, a Brit, who's our economy reporter. And previous to that, she joined as, did she join as an intern? can't remember. But she joined us covering, full-time covering transport. What are the huge French transport companies? That's a very good answer. If I say that transport is also making cars and airplanes? Airbus? What did you say? Sorry. Renault? Peugeot? She did defense too, Thales. And she covered Renault during the complete and utter downfall of industry, French industry tight. Here I just put the example, so she knew that she wanted to be international press, even though she's French. And so she did some study abroad. And so obviously she can work in both languages, which like no one would ever pay me to work in French. But she still works on her English. I mean, in broadcast, obviously you're speaking, but it's really interesting just to even know that after several years, she can still be seeking feedback on how she's pronouncing things to be making sure that, that she's telling the story in the best way possible. Next example. There's a lot of people. That's really impressive. Which degree did she do? All right, yeah, in French, yeah. And last but not least, thank you, Angelina. And Angelina, she, as you can see, joined us in London, then moved to Paris, was a TV producer to print. When you cover oil markets and OPEC, or OPEP, as we say in France, it seems like crude oil, really. But you travel the world, you meet with sheiks and finance ministers, oil ministers, and you meet an incredible international group of other journalists who are following the industry with you. And so after doing that, she then transferred into media and telecoms, and she is now our luxury correspondent covering LVMH and all the others. And what I love about Angeline is that recently we had a group of students from London come to Paris during Fashion Week, the last one. And they were studying fashion journalism. And when she presented to them, should we throw it to Ed? Yes? That's a good question. How many people are working in Paris? Shoot, I should have looked that up before I came. I think we're 15 journalists now, maybe 20. Now that we're all back in the office, there's a lot of us, something like that, yeah. And there's more and more French colleagues. When I first started, once again, before you all were born, we were like a very small group of practically only native English speakers. And now our editor-in-chief is now John Micklethwaite, who was the editor of The Economist for a very long time. And he has really put a premium on across all of our bureaus to say, the face of our bureau and the voice of our bureau needs to be a local person who can really build sources and really be promoting us, in that country and language. Our clients are anybody who's anybody in finance, trading, markets, company treasurers, company executives, and then we say that they are really the most influential people around the world. Lots of people in government too. I know that Anya's stories are read and discussed, and our opinion writer who writes on French government stuff, they're discussed in the Elysee. So yeah, we have 320,000 paying clients these days that pay $1,200 a month.
I think it's more than that. I think it's close to 2,000, isn't it?
All right, inflation. Okay, yes. Yeah. But then we syndicate to, well, do they still exist? To newspapers around the world. And we also have international media partners around the world. So we have Indian television, Canadian television, a station in Mongolia that are like affiliate partners as well. Any other questions? All right, I'll throw it to Ed to tell you all what you need to really know.
That was great. Thanks very much, Melissa. And it's lovely to see so many Sciences Po alumni up there on screen. I don't know how many of you were here in this room in April. I was lucky enough to be in Paris and was lucky enough to come along and speak to some students in this very room. Were any of you there, or show hands? No, maybe you're a fresh crop of people coming through. But I told the students then back in April, you know, I must look at well over 1,000 resumes and CVs a year. It's making my eyes weak, you know, the job that I do. And it's always an absolute delight when I see people who've studied at Sciences Po. You know, Sciences Po really jumps out from the page because we know what a great grounding you've got in journalism and other core topics. And you know that the university's just got a great reputation in the industry for putting out really talented young journalists. So you're in a great place, and hopefully, you know, I'll see some of your applications for our internship program. So I look after the internship program across Europe, apart from London. A colleague called Sonali Patharana looks after London for us. But across Europe, Middle East, Africa, and then through into the Asia Pacific. I'm based in Sydney, Australia. I don't know whether you can guess from the accent. I'm actually British, but I've been living in Australia for about 17 years now, since 2006. So we're recruiting right now for our global internship program. I'm looking after internships in Zurich and Prague and Frankfurt. We've got one in London that my colleague Sonali looks after. We're also recruiting for Singapore and Tokyo, Hong Kong as well. And we'll soon be launching for Jakarta and Taipei, and we'll soon be launching for New York as well. So it's really a you know, very global program. It's 10 weeks long. Usually starts round about the end of June and wraps up at the start of September. The other key thing about it is that it's paid. You know, a lot of internships around the world don't pay people for their time. We do, and we pay well. During that 10 weeks, you will get to collaborate with colleagues in the newsroom across print, across digital, across broadcast, you know, so it's multi-platform. And you'll learn to join the dots on the biggest stories around the world in our core coverage areas, you know, whether that's economics or business or finance or markets or technology and government. Those are our sort of six pillars. This is absolutely not a go get the coffee internship, right? You're not going to sit there in the corner and just kind of observe what's going on and be sent out to get Starbucks. You're going to get pulled into the coverage right from the start. We're going to treat you like a professional journalist, and you're going to get.
We have free coffee in the office.
Also.
Yeah, and it's better than Starbucks as well. Yeah, you'll get pulled into the coverage, and it's just a great opportunity to learn from some of the best people in the business, to really dig in and learn about, you know, our core coverage areas. You don't have to have studied business or economics or finance to do well at Bloomberg. You know, most of the people in the newsroom didn't. I did a liberal arts degree. I did English literature and German literature. And when I started working at Bloomberg in 2006, I'd been a journalist for for 10 years. You know, I'd worked for the British tabloids, you know, doing crime and court reporting. I'd worked for the Associated Press in London for 5 years, you know, really specializing in political and diplomatic coverage. And when I moved to Sydney and applied for work at Bloomberg, I got no business experience at all. I just really learned on the job, moving through different areas of coverage. And you know, that's what our interns do as well. We can teach you that kind of stuff. You can learn about the business and the finance. You know, if you dig in, if you read, if you're really tenacious and you're prepared to sort of put in the hard yards. So don't let that put you off business and finance journalism. We talked a little bit about the structure of our newsrooms, the fact that they're divided into teams, and we will aim to put you with a specialist coverage team during the internship, so you can really dig in and become familiar with a topic. And then that might be covering the stock market. You might be in the economy team. I've just had an intern in Tokyo wrap up on the technology team. So you'll be put into a core area, but you'll also be part of the bureau in which you're in. And the bureau chief will drag you into big coverage areas as well. So there'll be daily opportunities to write stories, you know, hopefully to do social video, and really build out a portfolio of work that will just be a fantastic springboard for a future career in this industry. Aside from the day-to-day flow of news, we'll train you in the rudiments of business and financial journalism. You know, we'll show you how to unlock the power of the Bloomberg terminal and find all of that rich data that can really bring a story to life and really give your writing authority. We'll teach you classes and workshops on things like data journalism and graphics, you know, the soft skills like interview technique, how to build sources, you know, how to get people to trust you so that you can break news. You know, we'll do workshops and all that kind of stuff. You'll hear from some great feature writers who can really give you some great tips and techniques on long form enterprise. You know, we'll do workshops also on how to pitch a story as well. So you'll get a great sort of foundational knowledge of some of the core skill sets of journalism. Now, our ultimate goal is to hire the best interns and to give them a full-time job with us. If you do really well in the internship, if the headcount is there in the bureau in which you're working, and more importantly, if you have enjoyed the experience and want to work for Bloomberg, you can get hired into what we call our rotator program. It's a cadetship basically, and you spend a year rotating through core parts of the newsroom. You know, covering markets, the breaking news team, which moves the fast headlines and owns the first 15 minutes of the news cycle. You know, you'll spend time working on a beat team, whether that's covering companies, whether it's covering the economy, whether it's covering technology. And you'll also spend 3 months working on a different platform. It might be Bloomberg.com, it might be radio, it might be podcasts, it might be TV. And the aim again is to give you that broad exposure across all of the sort of key areas of our cross-platform newsroom to really build out your skills. And after that foundational year, you know, you go into your sort of first role, first full-time role, and then you kind of move around the world, move around different teams, and kind of keep on reinventing yourself as a journalist. We've all done, you know, I've been with Bloomberg 17 years. How long have you been with us, Melissa?
You never asked a woman that question.
Am I not allowed to ask that one? Longer than me then.
28.
Bloomberg, right? Like, what are some of the roles that you've done?
So I started reporting on French companies and reported basically on everything except for finance. Then I ran the technology team back in 2000, right when the first huge bubble hit and broke. I ran our projects and investigations team in Europe and in Asia, and that's where I worked on the Apple story, but also did a bunch of really incredible investigations with incredible journalists. Edited on the opinion team during COVID, and then joined our training team where I am now about a year ago.
Yeah, so there's huge opportunities to sort of move around. You know, I'm based in Sydney. I've spent my entire Bloomberg career in Sydney. You know, largely because I've got a big family and I wanted to get settled. I moved around a lot in my sort of 20s and 30s. But you know, I've got colleagues who've gone from Sydney to London, London to New York, New York back to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Singapore. You know, they move all over the world. And there's lots of opportunities to do different roles. Like I joined on our world affairs team, sort of leveraging off my general news and political background, kind of helping small teams of journalists cover big breaking news on wars, famine, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, that kind of stuff. As an editor, I moved from that into covering corporate finance. So that's kind of corporate debt, syndicated loans. Didn't really enjoy that. Moved on as quickly as I could, but I did an okay job because they made me bureau chief off the back of that. I ran our coverage of Australia and New Zealand for about 10 years. And then about 2.5 years ago, I moved into this role that I'm doing now, which is, you know, it's a nice global role. I'm not at the coalface covering news as much as I used to, but I kind of get to live life vicariously a little bit by looking after the interns and looking after the rotators and helping that get their story ideas to fruition, and overseeing their development. So yeah, it's hugely rewarding and really exciting.
Take some questions.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, no. Oh, most important. Yes.
Just quickly. So Marie should be able to give you the links to apply for the internship program. We've got links up already for London, Zurich, Prague, and Frankfurt. I think the Americas as well.
Bloomberg Careers, you'll find the internships, and you can also put up alerts. Like if this year you're like, I'm not ready, or after first year I want to do something else, then you can put up alerts to get the postings each time they hit.
Also, if you're keen to sort of learn more about the company, we're doing an information session on, gosh, is it next Wednesday, October 25th, where we're going to do more of a presentation about Bloomberg, the kind of news that we cover. You'll get to hear from Zurich bureau chief, the Prague bureau chief, and the Frankfurt bureau chief as well. So if you've got German language skills or Czech language skills, then you know that's probably worth coming along. And again, either look on my LinkedIn profile, you'll see my posts on that event, or Marie will be able to forward the details to you. But yeah, I'll stop talking now. If you've got any questions,
yeah, we've already
maybe Melissa can kind of relay them through to me, because I'll struggle to hear you unless you've got a microphone.
Do you sponsor visas?
Internships in New York and London?
Visas?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the bane of my life, unfortunately. Some countries are easier than others. Like London's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty much anyone can get into doing an internship in London. Other countries around the world are an absolute nightmare for me. You know, would you believe that you can be a mainland Chinese student studying in Hong Kong, but I can't get you a visa to do a Hong Kong internship? You've got to be a Hong Kong permanent resident. There's lots of crazy rules like that. So, but generally on the application process, on the link, it will tell you what the visa requirements are like. Generally, anything in Europe will be fine.
And New York also?
Or do we
prefer for the New York internship?
Do we
Do we
do we?
prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? Or do we prefer for the New York internship? if you're looking.
Europe, can you apply to that, or is it better to apply to a more local one?
It's generally better to apply for local ones, right? The bigger the location you go for, the more competition there's going to be. I mean, we get hundreds of applications in London. We'll probably only get about 25 to 30 applications in Frankfurt, right? So, you know, do the math. If you've got the language skills as well, if you're fluent in the language of the country in which we're doing the internship, that can be a huge advantage for you. And again, that's one of the wonderful things about the Sciences Po students.
We've got a question on the very back of the room.
Great.
Thank you. Hi. I was just wondering, I think I saw in the application we need 3 clips. Do they have to be in English? If they are not, can we translate them ourselves? Or I think it's for the London application, so I don't know how it works for the other ones, but yep.
Melissa, can you help me on that? I really struggle to hear, yeah.
In terms of lengths, is it okay
to put foreign language examples? And if you do, should you provide a translation, especially for the London posting?
For articles that you've written, no, I mean, I don't think you need to provide a translation. You know, we can run it through Google Translate. That should be fine. I think one of the requirements, certainly for the internships that I look after, we do like to see some sort of clips of work that you've done. So, but most of you have got great LinkedIn profiles, or you've got really schmick resumes where you've got embedded links to work that you've had published. So that works quite well as well. Did I answer that question, or was there another part to it?
Thank you. Anything else? Oh, one more question. Is there a more political beat as well? And if so, can an intern be in?
Yeah, we have. I tend to put quite a few interns through the eco government team. You know, we had an intern in Warsaw the summer that's just taken place, and he did a lot of work building up to the election that's just taken place. And one of our Frankfurt reporters was also on the eco government team. Yeah, and even if you're not specialising in political coverage during the internship, there's always the opportunity to pitch stories and get involved. I've got an intern who, in the second week of her internship in Dubai, she's on the equities team, but you know, Dubai is our main hub for helping report out the big conflict between Israel and Gaza, Israel and Hamas in Gaza, and she co-wrote and reported just a fantastic feature looking at the humanitarian crisis that's unfolding in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah,
she was a joint byline with our incredible journalist who's going to be based in Saudi Arabia, but who's like written books and everything. So it was incredible to see her joint byline on that. Yeah.
So, you know, the fact that she had a week of sort of intensive training, and then her first real week in the newsroom when she's working as a journalist, she co-reported and co-wrote, you know, one of our main and most important features on the biggest story in the world, right? That's the kind of opportunities you get. As I say, it's not a go get the coffee internship, right? It's the real deal. Fantastic.
It's a good way to wrap. I just wanted to end with one quick 3 questions for you all, a little quiz. How many of you all took down the Twitter handles of the Sciences Po alum? Are you already following them on Twitter? How many of you answered? Oh no, how many of you checked your Instagram feed while I was speaking? I won't be heard, I promise. Truth? No one. All right. So how many of you are going to send Ed a thank you email after this? No one. All right, all to say, definitely social media is awesome, and it's awesome for networking and meeting people, but don't keep your head in it all the time. As a journalist, watch around you. You also might step in dog poop, which I did on my way over here, so you don't want to do that either. But really, you guys are in an incredible position. Like, look at this building. Make the most of it. Be curious, ask questions, and as kids who have been through COVID and life was really hard, personal connection is still really, really important. And so when you're looking for jobs, that email can make a big difference to 1 year later, 2 years later, reaching back out to that person and having them actually answer you when you really need them. But thank you. Wonderful. Thanks, Ed.
As well, and please do reach out on LinkedIn. You know, it's such an incredibly powerful networking tool. I'd love to hear from you, and you know, if you need any further advice on applying for the internship, or you know, any other ways to break into this great industry, then please do hit me up on LinkedIn. And thanks for having me. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much.